Empire.
We now know where Julio Jones is going to be playing in 2022 because today the Tennessee Titans and Atlanta Falcons agreed to a trade where the Atlanta Falcons are going to be getting a 22 second round pick and the Falcons getting 22 second round pick and a 2023 fourth round pick, and the Titans get Julio Jones and a 2023 sixth round pick. Compensation seems pretty comparable to the Hayden Hurst trade that the Falcons made last year. Falcons got Hayden Hurst and a 2020 fourth round pick for a 2020 second and fifth round pick. Falcons really wanted a first round pick, couldn't get that in return for Julio Jones. What I really wanted to see was the potential to have a first round pick, but have these picks be conditional, where it became a first-round pick if Jones made the Pro Bowl in 2022 or performed at the highest level for a 32-year-old receiver. We've had 85 receptions, hit 14 times by a 32-year-old, 1,375 yards, hit 10 times by a 32-year-old. So if he would have hit either one of those thresholds, I would have liked to have seen it become a first-round pick, which is not going to happen. And then have the opposite condition for the fifth round pick, where if he couldn't do what he did last year, 51 catches, 771 yards, and then the fifth round pick got voided. Now, Titans' second round pick is going to be a late round pick, presumably, because you figure they're going to be now the odds-on favorite to win the AFC South. So, what does this do for the Atlanta Falcons? Well, Falcons only had $285,693 of salary cap space according to NFLPA data. So they haven't signed any of their non-draft picks. The draft class is going to take up $13,048,199. Now, that's not all you need for the cap space, at least for now, because under off-season accounting rules, only the top 51 salaries count. So the net change, when you start factoring in top 51, it's going to be $6,224,912. So they now signed the draft picks. Well, what's going to happen with Julio is his cap number was counting on the books for Atlanta at $23.05 million. Well, that $15.3 million salary he's supposed to make now goes to Tennessee. So that's going to leave $7.75 million in dead money. So that frees up $15.3 million of cap space. But at the same time, since he's coming out of the top 51, somebody else is coming in. So that's probably going to be someone with a $780,000 cap number. So when you look at it, Falcons are now, after the trade, going to have basically $14.80 cap space. Sign the draft picks with the net change, and from the top 51, they're going to have about $8.6 million cap space. And then once you have the change from top 51 to everything counting on September 9th, depending upon, usually that's like $3 to $5 million, they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay now cap-wise. Now, 2022, the Falcons are going to have $15.5 million of dead money. That's from the bonus proration associated with Julio Jones' 2022 and 2023 cap years. So that's actually going to be a savings of, they're going to pick up $3.763 million of cap space in 2022 because Julio's cap number was $19.263 million. That's the same cap number he had for 2023. He's off the books in 2023. So Falcons are going to get $19.263 million of cap space in 2023 with the trade. Now, what this means is Calvin Ridley is their clear number one receiver. He was the 26th overall pick in 2018. They picked up the fifth-year option for him this year for 2022, which will be $11.116 million. That is fully guaranteed. He had a breakout season last year of 90 catches, 1,374 receiving yards, and 9 touchdown catches. So, if he can do anything remotely close to that in 2021, presumably next year he gets a new contract, If I'm him, I'm going, hey, you paid Julio Jones $22 million per year and new money on the extension, $66 million over 3 years. That's my starting point if I can do that again. That's what I asked for if I'm Calvin Ridley. This also means Kyle Pitts has to be as good as advertised, a 4th overall pick at tight end. He needs to come in out the box and perform at a Pro Bowl level for the Falcons to have any type of real success this year. Now, Titans are clearly in win-now mode. That's the only reason you do a trade like this if you're the Titans. The Titans now, with Julio coming aboard, have filled partially the void from having Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis leaving free agency. Davis' 5th-year option was not picked up by the Titans. Had it been picked up, he was going to be making $15.68 million this year. Julio's coming in for $15.3. You have to think that Julio is an upgrade over Corey Davis. I know Julio's 32 years old, but a couple things to take into account with Julio. He averaged 85.7 receiving yards per game last year, which is 7th in the NFL. After everyone's played 8 games last year, he played 6 of them. He's averaging 97.3 receiving yards per game. That was 3rd in the NFL, behind Devontae Adams and DK Metcalf. That's even better than his career average of 95.5, which is the best in NFL history for anyone who's had a minimum of 100 games. Second is Calvin Johnson at 86.1. So I still think there's gas left in the tank for Julio. It was a hamstring problem last year. Didn't tear his ACL. Didn't tear his Achilles. So I think this is going to put the Titans as the favorites for the AFC South. They still have to contend with the Kansas City Chiefs to get out of the AFC. The Buffalo Bills were 13-3 last year. You still have the Ravens hanging around. By no means does this make them the odds-on favorite, I would think, to get out of the AFC. Not as long as Patrick Mahomes is there and they've revamped that offensive line in Kansas City. Now, he's got 3 years left on his contract, Julio, for $38.326 million. Now, the Titans take all that on. Now, there's one problem. They only have $3.9 million of cap space. So you have to have enough cap space to absorb somebody's contract when you take them on. So something's going to have to give here. That means the Titans probably have to restructure a contract. That's one route to get enough cap room. The obvious choice to restructure a contract is quarterback Ryan Tannehill. He's got a $24.5 million base salary. The Titans have automatic conversion rights in his contract. They don't necessarily have to go to him and say, hey, we need you to restructure the contract. They can do it. The way the terms of these automatic conversion rights read, the player is obligated to sign a new contract which reflects the restructure, or they're considered in breach or default. And if you're in breach or default, typically your guarantees would void. So Ryan Tannehill also wants Julio Jones on the team, so there's going to be no problem if they go that route. Now, considering he's got a $24.5 million base salary, you can get as much as $15,616,666 from a Ryan Tannehill restructure if you lower his base salary down to $1.075 million. That's the max you could get. That's if you lowered his base salary down that and you converted everything else into signing bonus. That'd be $23.425 million. You could obviously convert less in the signing bonus. You'd get less cap room, but that's the max you could get. Another thing is they could add 2 voiding dummy years if they wanted more cap room. Voiding dummy years into 2024 and 2025. His contract expires after 2023. Drop his base salary down to his league minimum $1.075 million, then you are going to get $18.74 million of cap relief if you do that. Now, the only problem is if you do that, you didn't have dead money in 2024. You have 2 years of proration hitting the cap in 2024, which would be $9.37 million. So I suspect if they're going to restructure Tannehill's contract, they're not going to want to add the dummy voiding years. you could do a partial restructure, but then you also have to attack Julio's contract on the way in the door, which will require the Julio and the Titans agreeing to what it will look like afterwards, and the Falcons actually executing the change. Now, there are a couple things you could do, because Julio's not going to take a pay cut. He probably thinks he's underpaid at $38.326 million left on his contract. $15.3 million base salary, you can do what happened with Kiko Alonso a couple of years ago in a trade to from Miami to the Saints at the roster cut down in 2019. They shifted a part of his base salary in 2019 into a March roster bonus, which is fully guaranteed. Now, Julio's base salary is already fully guaranteed. So how this would work is, let's say you lowered his base salary. I'm just using a number for illustrative purposes. Say you lowered his base salary from 15.3 to 10. That means you still have to restructure someone from the Titans, but 10 million is less than the 15.3 you have to absorb. So that means his 2022 base salary would go up, not base salary, total salary would go up by 5.3 million. Let's say the 5.3 million is in a first day of the league year roster bonus. You'd have to have no offsets with that roster bonus to put him in the same place. Julio also has a $2 million base salary guarantee for 2022. In addition to that, because Julio's contract predates the new CBA in the 17th game edition, players who had contracts signed before the new CBA was ratified last March, they get a 17th game check if they're on injured reserve or the 50-man roster as of the 17th game. If you have made a substantial modification to the contract. A simple contract restructure like we're talking about for Tannehill would not be something which would affect the 17th game check. What we're talking about with Julio, would affect his ability to make a 17th game check. So we've seen this done in other cases, like when the Texans modified Brandon Cooks' contract. They added 17th game roster bonuses in. So he is no worse off than he would have been had he done nothing. So you'd have to add a $900,000 roster bonus in 2021, a $677,235 roster bonuses in 2022 and 2023 for 17th game. So Julio will be in the same place he would be otherwise. Now, with him shifting money down to 2023, he may be, I haven't checked to see exactly where it would be math-wise, but he's probably not going to be any worse off and maybe a little bit better if he did that, just because of the way base salaries are now going to be paid, starting with the 2021 season. Because it was already going to go to players getting paid, instead of over the 17-week season, twice the number of the weeks of the regular season. So now we've got an 18-week regular season game, 18 weeks in the regular season. You are getting paid over 36 weeks. So that payment's going to stretch out. I think that puts you April, May. So if he gets the bulk of the money or some portion of it in a March roster bonus and it's payable upon execution or shortly thereafter, he might come out better off in terms of a payment schedule or be no worse off. Now, another way you can do this is an option bonus. And this is something, if both these things, shifting the money down in the 2022 into a roster bonus, has to be done pre-trade. Let's say you did an option bonus. You could cut his base salary down even lower. Let's say you cut it to 5.3. Still would have to restructure a contract, but it'd be a small restructure. And you turn 10 into an option bonus. To ensure that the option is exercised, you would have to have the base salary be, since it's going to be 11.513, because that's his base salary in 2022 and 2023, you'd add 10 to that, so it's 21.513. And it would reduce if the option is exercised, because that huge cap number would ensure that you have the option exercised. And let's say you add 2 voiding dummy years to it, and you got the $10 million option bonus. You got a 3-day window, first or third day of the league year, to exercise it. And you take that $10 million, you prorate it out 2022 to 2025. You have $5 million of dead money or cap charge for no one on the roster when those dummy years void at the end of the 2023 league year. But You got the 11.53 base salary, another 2.5 in proration, so you're at 14.013 as a cap number in 2022 and 2023. That's the way you can do it as well. But as it stands right now, something has to be done. Since the Falcons aren't eating any salary on their way out the door, and the Titans are going to absorb the full cap hit, the full salary, the $38.326 million, most importantly, for trade purposes, the $15.3 million salary that Julio was supposed to make in 2021. So something's got to give between doing something on the way out the door, or by way out the door, I mean agreeing where he's going to have some of his 2020 base salary in 2022, either through an option bonus or in a roster bonus. Or the Titans can just go ahead and restructure contracts, and Ryan Tannehill is the most logical candidate for that.
This episode is brought to you by HP Instant Ink. No one is reading your mind, but HP Instant Ink knows when your printer is running low and sends you new cartridges, so you never have to think about ink. Save up to 50%. You'll pay less than $5 a month for ink and never run out again. Find out if your printer is eligible and enroll today at hpinstantink.com. Conditions apply. For details, visit hp.com/instantink Spotify.
Hey there, it's John Keim with the John Keim Report podcast. I'm glad you're enjoying the Inside the Cap podcast with Joel Corey. When you're done, I invite you to listen to my podcast. Twice a week, my guests and I discuss the Washington football team and the NFL. The show features numerous NFL insiders, former and current players and executives, and taps into the insight gained in my 25-plus years covering this franchise. Check out the John Keim Report, another fine product offered by Empire Media.
Coincidentally, Jones's contract, Tannehill's, and Henry's all expire after the 2023 season. So we got a 3-year window for the Titans to make that Super Bowl push. One thing you got to look at, to me, with Julio is the way this offense runs. His days of getting 200 targets, he had 203 targets in 2015, are over. If you look at the targets that the receivers had, Corey Davis and A.J. Brown in 2019, 153 targets. 2020, 198 combined targets. So this means Julio's targets are going to drop tremendously, most likely. Fewest targets he had since after his rookie year, where he's played a majority of the games, 128 in 2012. And that's when they still had Roddy White. So he was at best 1B, if not the second receiver. Had over 1,000 yards that year. And in 2016, he went from that career high 2003 targets to 129 in 14 games with Mohamed Sanu. Now, with the Titans, this is a run-oriented offense. And Derrick Henry led leading carries past 2 years. 303 carries, 2019, a whopping 378 carries in 2020. That was the 19th most in any single season. He had 2,027 yards. Now, one thing that we've seen is when you have a high usage season, like 300 carries or more, you start to decline. So, and also something else cutting against Derrick Henry, and maybe he defies odds because he's superhuman, that once you have a 2,000-yard season, no one's had a 1,500-yard season the next season. There's an extra game, so that makes it more probable or possible for Henry to do it. So getting Julio Jones helps in that regard, that now maybe you have a little more balance to the offense. One thing which is now a defensive dilemma is the standpoint that the Titans, because of Derrick Henry, saw 8 defenders in the box, 23.1% of their snaps last year, more than any other team in the NFL. If you want to do that, these two guys on the same side, same field, Jones and Brown, these guys are going to feast. Now the question is, who gets the coverage rolled to them? It's been A.J. Brown, but if Julio is still close to being Julio, you can't double Brown, because then Julio's going to run wild. Now, who gets the number one corner? Brown or Julio? It's been a long time. I'd assume early in his career, Roddy White was the last time he faced number two corners. So that's great. So let's say you take a man out of the box. Then more running room for Derrick Henry. So you kind of, to me, defensively, new dynamic. Damned if you, damned if you don't. Titans haven't had 2,000-yard receivers simultaneously since 2004. Derek Mason and Drew Bennett, last time they had that happen. I would think you don't want to have Derrick Henry with 378 carries again, so you're going to throw the ball a little more. The unknown variable is Anthony Fersker. We don't know what he can do, how good he's going to be, but if you got those two guys on the outside, he should have a career year. He's probably going to have one anyway with Jonnu Smith in New England. But Jonnu Smith didn't get to 50 catches last year. So it may be really good for Fersker as well. Because if you try to take away those receivers, middle field's going to be open. Or Josh Reynolds, the slot receiver. So this is going to be interesting for first-year offensive coordinator Todd Downing to see how this works in terms of offensively. How the defense is going to react to this. Because to me, this has to be right near the top, if not the top receiving tandem in the NFL. And this is predicated on Julio still being close to Julio. At least for the 2021 season, it'll be 33 and 34. We've only had one guy who's had 80 catches and 1,200 yards in the 3 seasons for being 32 to 34. That was Jerry Rice. But we also had Jerry Rice at 33 at the time set the NFL record for 1,848 receiving yards. So Julio probably isn't putting up the same numbers he did just because how run-oriented this offense is, but he adds a dimension which is going to give, I would think, defense's nightmare. The defense is a nightmare if he can stay healthy. So I think, at least on paper, this is a home run for the Titans in terms of this trade. I don't know if they're going to be the best team in the AFC, but they should win the AFC South. I'm still not sold on Carson Wentz bouncing back from his implosion last year, but still, the Colts needed another receiver, T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman, etc. At least the skill position guys. Got to love what the Titans have done. From a Falcons standpoint, would have liked to have seen a way for them to get to a first-round pick from a conditional standpoint since they couldn't get a first-round pick. So I think from at least that standpoint, it works out a little better for the Titans for now than the Falcons. It's hard to judge a trade totally for a couple of years. We'll see how it looks down the road. But at least for now, I think the Titans got the better end of the deal.
I'm Amanda Klutz, Broadway actress, dancer, and celebrity trainer, and I partnered with Equinox to create a custom AK rope class. It's a rhythmic group fitness experience, and music is an integral component. Jump and sculpt using the rope in ways you've never imagined. It's time to get back to moving our bodies. AK Rope, my signature class, now available at Equinox, is a safe, fun, and positive way to do just that.
This episode is brought to you by the NBA. Witness mind-bending competition on the biggest stage between the best players in the world, a place where legends are made. It's impossible jumps that seem to freeze in midair, and spectacular steals that you didn't see coming. It's that one play that lasts seconds that you will talk about for the rest of your life. And let's face it, it's the unpredictability of it all, never knowing when the next big moment will happen. Huge wins and crushed dreams. It's the drama of it all. You just can't make this stuff up. That's the NBA. That's game. The NBA playoffs are happening right now. Don't miss all the action.
What's up? It's Mike Jones from the Football Jones podcast. I know you're enjoying your time with Inside the Cap, but once you're done, I want to invite you to come over and check out my podcast. Each week, we take a deep dive into some of the most pressing topics around the NFL. High-profile guests from the coach, player, and front office ranks, as well as the top league insiders. Check out the Football Jones podcast, another fine product brought to you by Empire Media.
Thanks for listening to this week's version of Inside the Cap. Don't forget you can find me on Twitter. That is Corey Joel, CorryJoel. And I have my regular Agents Take column at CBSSports.com. We'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.